On November 12, 1970, a small coastal town in Oregon became the stage for one of the strangest disasters in modern American history. It wasn't a hurricane, an earthquake, or even a fire. It was a whale. And not just any whale, but a dead 45-foot-long sperm whale that washed ashore, bloated, rotting, and far too massive for anyone to handle. What followed would be remembered, not as a moment of triumph, but as one of the most absurd government decisions ever made, blowing up the whale with dynamite. The story begins in the quiet coastal town of Florence, Oregon. In early November 1970, locals noticed the massive body of a sperm whale stranded on the beach. It weighed more than 8 tons, and by the time officials arrived, the whale had already been dead for several days. In warm weather, a dead whale is more than just an eyesore. The carcass swells with gases from decomposition, and without intervention, it could literally burst open on its own. The smell was overwhelming, drawing flies, seagulls, and curious onlookers. Town officials knew they had a serious problem. The whale couldn't simply be buried. This was too large, and the tides would likely expose it again. Hauling it away by truck was nearly impossible. Cutting it up would be messy, dangerous, and would take days. So the Oregon Highway Division, the state agency responsible for keeping roads and beaches clear, came up with a plan. A plan so unorthodox, so unexpected, that it has since become legendary. The authorities decided the best solution was simple: blow it up. Yes, dynamite, lots of dynamite. Their reasoning was straightforward, at least on paper. If they placed enough explosives under the whale, the blast would disintegrate the carcass into small pieces. Then seagulls and crabs would take care of the remains. Within days, nature would finish the cleanup. It seemed at the time like a creative solution. After all, the Highway Division's job was to clear obstacles from roads and beaches, and explosives were a tool they already used for removing boulders or landslides. To them, a whale was just another obstacle. They brought in engineers and decided on the amount: half a ton of dynamite. That's 20 cases of explosives. November 12, 1970. A crowd gathered on the beach, eager to witness the unusual event. Local residents, reporters, even families with children came to watch what they assumed would be the spectacular end of the giant whale. One reporter, Paul Linman of Portland's KA2 TV, was there with a film crew. He later described the smell as unforgettable, a combination of rotting fish and gasoline fumes from the dynamite. The plan was set. The dynamite was carefully placed on the landward side of the whale to blast it toward the ocean. At least that was the idea. At 3:45 p.m., the countdown began. 3, 2, 1, and then boom. The whale exploded with a thunderous roar. Sand and smoke filled the air. At first, the crowd cheered, but within seconds their cheers turned into screams. The plan had failed spectacularly. Instead of disintegrating into small, harmless pieces, the whale's flesh was hurled high into the sky in massive, heavy chunks. Great slabs of blubber rained down on the beach. Some pieces weighed hundreds of pounds. The air was filled with the sickening smell of vaporized whale fat. One enormous chunk crashed directly onto a parked car, flattening its roof. Fortunately, no people were killed, though many ran for cover as whale meat fell all around them. Paul Linman, the reporter, captured the entire scene on film. His broadcast would later become one of the most infamous clips in television history: the day Oregon tried to blow up a whale. When the dust settled, the beach was a disaster. Yes, parts of the whale had been destroyed, but the explosion had also launched massive pieces farther inland, scattering them across the sand dunes. Some were too large for birds to eat. Instead of solving the problem, officials had created a bigger mess. Cleanup crews spent days hauling away giant chunks of blubber that hadn't gone anywhere. The smell lingered for weeks. The seagulls, they never came. Perhaps even the birds were too disgusted by what had happened. In the end, the exploding whale became a cautionary tale in Oregon state history, a symbol of what happens when a bad idea meets good intentions. For years, the story lived on in local legend, was told in bars, in schools, and at campfires. Then, thanks to the survival of the KATU TV footage, the exploding whale became one of the first viral news clips of the internet age. When websites began sharing strange videos in the late 1990s, the whale footage resurfaced and gained worldwide fame. By the 2000s, it was a staple of weird history lists, and Oregon even embraced it as part of its quirky identity. In 2020, to mark the 50th anniversary, the Oregon town of Florence officially dedicated a park near the site of the explosion as Exploding Whale Memorial Park. Yes, there is now a memorial to a whale that was blown up with dynamite. The story of the exploding whale is both hilarious and tragic. It reminds us of the limits of human problem solving and of the sometimes absurd relationship between people and nature. The officials wanted to solve a problem quickly. Instead, they created a moment that would live on in history, not as a success, but as a spectacular failure. More than 50 years later, the story still fascinates us because it feels so human. Faced with an impossible problem, we try something bold, and sometimes it blows up in our faces, literally. Thanks for watching History Sets Glitch. If you enjoyed this strange story, don't forget to subscribe and follow for more. Every Sunday, a brand new video premieres here on the channel. See you in the next one.